The emergency alarm echoed through the massive council chamber aboard Zenith 7 station. Representatives from 40 different species filled the curved rows of seats, their forms ranging from crystalline beings that glowed with inner light to massive creatures that needed reinforced platforms to support their weight. At the center of the chamber, a holographic display showed a dying planet. Captain Jin-Ho Park stood among the human delegation, his dark uniform crisp despite the long journey to reach this place. Beside him, Commander Minji Choi studied the display with sharp eyes. They had been summoned here with barely any explanation, just an urgent message that the council needed immediate attendance. The Aethari ambassador rose first. Her crystalline body refracted the light into rainbow patterns across the walls. When she spoke, her voice rang like bells. "We have received a distress call from Keth 9. 3,000 civilians are trapped there. The Voran military has surrounded the colony completely." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew about the Vorans. They were an insectoid species that showed no mercy to those they conquered. Their territory was called the Exclusion Zone, for good reason. Ships that entered rarely came back. The holographic display shifted to show the tactical situation. Red markers indicated Voran ships in orbit around Keth 9. More red markers covered the surface, where their ground forces had established positions. A blue dot marked the colony, surrounded on all sides. "The Vorans have deployed a gravity well generator," a Kralgan war chief rumbled. His species stood 3 meters tall, covered in thick, armor-like skin. No ship can jump to faster than light speed within the system. They are trapped like animals in a cage. Jin-Ho felt his chest tighten. 3,000 people. Men, women, children from a dozen different species, all waiting for help that might never come. A Sindari representative floated forward, her telepathic voice touching every mind in the chamber. "Our analysts have studied the situation. A successful rescue would require at least 30 warships. The battle would last days. We would lose thousands of soldiers. By the time we broke through, the colonists would already be dead." "Then what are we discussing?" another delegate called out. "If rescue is impossible, why call this meeting?" The Aethari ambassador's light dimmed slightly. "We are here to make it official. The council must vote to abandon Keth 9. It is a strategic necessity. We cannot sacrifice thousands to save 3,000. It is simple mathematics." Jin-Ho felt Minji's hand on his arm, a warning. She knew him too well. She could see the anger building in his face. "We will observe a moment of silence for those we cannot save," the ambassador continued. "Then, we will vote." The chamber fell quiet. Jin-Ho looked at the holographic display, at that small blue dot representing 3,000 lives. He thought about Earth's history, about all the times humans had faced impossible choices. He thought about the old military saying that his grandfather had taught him, "We leave no one behind." His feet moved before his brain caught up. Jin-Ho walked down the aisle toward the center of the chamber. Minji hissed his name, trying to stop him, but he kept going. "Captain Park," the Aethari ambassador said sharply, "you have not been recognized to speak. Return to your delegation." Jin-Ho stopped at the center, standing beneath the holographic display. "I volunteer the human ship Indomitable for the rescue mission. My crew and I will go to Keth 9. The chamber exploded with noise. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The Aethari ambassador's light flashed bright with anger. "This is not a matter for volunteers," she declared. "The council has determined that rescue is impossible. We will not authorize a suicide mission." "Then don't call it a rescue mission," Jin-Ho said calmly. "Call it whatever you want." "But my ship is going to Keth 9. The Kralgan war chief leaned forward. "Human captain, do you understand the situation? 37 Voran warships guard that system. Your single vessel would be destroyed in minutes. This is not bravery. This is stupidity." "Maybe," Jin-Ho agreed. "But those 3,000 people didn't ask to be abandoned. They're counting on us. And humans have a rule. We don't leave people behind." Not ever. A Sindari elder projected her thoughts into his mind, and Jin-Ho felt the weight of her concern. Young Captain, your species is still new to the galactic community. You have much to learn about the realities of war. Some battles cannot be won. Some prices are too high to pay. Jin-Ho met her gaze. My species learned about war long before we reached the stars. We learned that the hardest choices define who we are. If we abandon those people because saving them is difficult, what does that say about us? Tana. Minji had made her way down to stand beside him. She looked furious, but she placed her hand over her heart in the human salute of solidarity. The Indomitable's crew will follow Captain Park's decision. We volunteer for this mission. The Aethari ambassador's light pulsed with frustration. You will both die. Your entire crew will die. And the colonists will still be lost. This changes nothing. It changes everything, Jin-Ho said quietly. It means they won't die alone. It means someone tried. The council chamber fell silent again. This time, it was not a respectful silence. It was the heavy quiet of beings who had just watched someone choose certain death. The Aethari ambassador finally spoke. Very well. The council will authorize your mission. But understand this, Captain Park. When you fail, when your ship is debris and your crew is dead, do not expect us to risk more lives in a second attempt. You will have made your choice. Jin-Ho nodded once. Understood. The Indomitable launches in 3 hours. As he and Minji walked back through the chamber, not a single delegate met their eyes. To the council, they were already ghosts. The chamber doors closed behind them, with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Keth-9 system. Immediately, every alarm on the bridge started screaming. Captain Jin-Ho Park gripped his command chair as the tactical display lit up with red markers. Contact. Lieutenant Heejin Song called out from the pilot station. I count 37 Voran ships. No. Wait. 42. They're spreading out to surround us. Commander Minji Choi stood at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across the controls. They knew we were coming. This is a trap, Jin-Ho. They're using the colony as bait. Jin-Ho watched the enemy ships move into position. The Vorans flew in tight formations, their vessels shaped like massive beetles with weapon ports glowing green along their hulls. Standard galactic military doctrine would call for the Indomitable to fight its way through, trading shots with the enemy fleet, but standard doctrine would get them killed in the first 5 minutes. Helm, take us into the asteroid belt, Jin-Ho ordered. Full speed. Heejin looked back at him, surprise on her face. Captain, the belt is dense. Navigation will be nearly impossible at high speed. The Vorans will find it impossible too, Jin-Ho said. But we've practiced this. They haven't. Execute protocol Razor's Edge. Minji smiled grimly. She knew what he was planning. The human military had spent years developing combat tactics based on one simple truth. Humans were better at chaos than most species. Where others sought order and clean battle lines, humans thrived in confusion. The Indomitable dove toward the massive asteroid belt that circled Keth-9. Behind them, the Voran fleet pursued, firing long-range weapons. Green energy bolts streaked past the human ship, some striking the shields and making the deck shudder. Shields at 80%, Minji reported. They're targeting our engines. Let them waste ammunition, Jin-Ho said. Heijin, take us deep. The Indomitable plunged into the asteroid field like a needle through cloth. Massive rocks tumbled through space in every direction, some as small as a fist, others the size of buildings. Heijin's hands moved constantly on the controls, weaving the ship between obstacles that would crush them if they made contact. The Voran ships followed, but their tight formations began to break apart. They weren't used to this kind of flying. Their doctrine emphasized coordinated firepower, ships staying close together to maximize their combined weapons. In the asteroid field, That made them vulnerable. Launch fighters, Jin-Ho commanded. Have them use the rocks as cover. I want hit and run. Attacks only. Don't engage in dogfights. Hyjin relayed the orders. From the Indomitable's launch bays, 20 small fighter craft emerged. Each one carried a single pilot and enough weapons for quick strikes. The fighters scattered into the asteroid field like insects, disappearing among the rocks. A Voran cruiser came around a large asteroid, directly in front of the Indomitable. Minji didn't wait for orders. She fired every forward weapon at once. The cruiser's shields flared and collapsed. The ship spun away, venting atmosphere. 1 down, she said. 41 to go. The battle became a chaotic dance. The Indomitable would appear from behind an asteroid, fire at an enemy ship, then disappear again before the Vorans could coordinate a response. The human fighters acted like hornets, stinging Voran vessels and vanishing before retaliation could catch them. But the Vorans were learning. They began to spread out, using the asteroids to their advantage too. A squadron of enemy fighters caught 2 human pilots in an ambush. Jin-Ho watched on his display as the 2 friendly markers winked out. We're taking losses, Minji said quietly. And we're still not through to Keth 9. Jin-Ho studied the tactical map. The planet sat beyond the asteroid belt, so close yet impossibly far. The Voran fleet had positioned itself between the Indomitable and the colony. Every minute they spent in the belt was another minute the colonists suffered below. We need to break through, he said. Prepare for a full burn to the planet. Captain, if we leave the cover of the belt, they'll concentrate all their fire on us, Minji warned. The shields won't hold. I know. But we're not here to win a space battle. We're here for those people on the ground. Recall all fighters. We're going through. The order went out. Human fighters began retreating toward the Indomitable, many of them damaged and limping. Hyjin positioned the ship at the inner edge of the asteroid belt, directly facing Keth 9. All fighters recovered, Minji reported. But Captain, I'm reading something else. The gravity well generator on the planet's surface. It's not where we thought it was. Jin-Ho leaned forward. Explain. Intelligence said it was at the main Voran base. But the readings show it's actually 5 kilometers away, at an old mining facility. They hid it separately from their command center. A spark of hope flared in Jin-Ho's chest. If they could destroy that generator, ships would be able to jump to faster than light speed again. The Vorans wouldn't be able to trap reinforcements. But it was on the surface, surrounded by enemy forces. Minji, prepare a strike team. 12 Marines, demolition equipment. They'll go down with the main landing force. That's suicide, Jin-Ho. They'll have to cross 5 kilometers of enemy territory. Everything we're doing is suicide, Jin-Ho reminded her. At least this way, we open a door for everyone else if things go wrong. Minji nodded and began selecting the strike team. Jin-Ho turned back to the view screen. The Voran fleet waited beyond the belt, ready to tear them apart. All hands, this is the captain, he said over the ship-wide communication. We're about to do something very stupid. We're going to fly straight at a planet through 40 enemy warships, punch through the atmosphere, and drop our people into a hot combat zone. The odds say we shouldn't survive the next hour. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. Every face showed fear, but also determination. But the odds have been wrong about humans before. Today, we're going to prove them wrong again. For the 3,000 people counting on us. For the idea that no one should die alone and forgotten. For every person who ever said humans were too weak, too soft, too stupid to matter in this galaxy. Let's show them what we really are. The crew erupted in shouts of agreement. Hyjin's hands tightened on the controls. Course laid in, Captain. Ready for full burn on your command. Jin-Ho took one last look at the tactical display. So many red markers. So much firepower waiting to kill them. He thought about the council chamber. About all those species who had written them off as already dead. Take us in, he ordered. Full speed. All weapons free. And somebody play some music. If we're flying into hell, we might as well have a soundtrack. The Indomitable's engines roared to full power. The ship burst from the asteroid belt like a bullet from a gun, charging directly at the Voran fleet. Behind them, the asteroids continued their slow dance through space, indifferent to the battle being fought in their shadow. The Indomitable screamed toward Keth 9 with every weapon firing at once. Green Voran energy bolts filled space around them like deadly rain. The ship's shields flared and sparked as they absorbed hit after hit. Shields at 40%, Minji called out. 30. 25. Captain Jin-Ho Park kept his eyes fixed on the planet growing larger on the view screen. They needed to reach the atmosphere before the shields collapsed completely. Once they hit the upper atmosphere, the Vorans would have to be more careful with their fire or risk hitting the planet itself. Hull breach on Deck 7, another officer reported. Sealing bulkheads. The ship shuddered as a particularly strong blast struck the rear section. Sparks flew from control panels on the bridge. The lights flickered and went to emergency red. We're not going to make it, Heejin said through gritted teeth. The hull can't take much more. Jin-Ho made his decision in a heartbeat. Kill the shields. Divert all power to engines and structural integrity. Make them think we're crashing. Captain? Minji stared at him. Do it. The Vorans are trying to disable us for capture. If they think we're already dead, they'll stop shooting and watch us burn up on entry. It's our only chance. Minji hesitated only a moment, then executed the command. The shields vanished. The Indomitable's engines burned even brighter as all power fed into them. The ship tilted nose down toward Keth 9 and accelerated hard. On the Voran flagship, alarms sounded. The enemy commander watched the human vessel's rapid descent and concluded what Jin-Ho wanted him to conclude. The ship was mortally damaged and plunging to its death. The Voran vessels ceased fire, content to watch their prey burn. Entering atmosphere, Heejin announced. The ship began to shake as friction built up against the hull. Temperature rising fast. Hull stress at critical levels. Jin-Ho gripped his chair as the whole ship screamed around them. Through the view screen, he could see Keth 9's surface approaching at terrifying speed. Clouds rushed past. The hull temperature climbed higher and higher. Level out, he ordered. Now, Heijin pulled back on the controls with all her strength. The Indomitable's nose lifted. The ship groaned, and metal shrieked. But it obeyed. Instead of crashing, the vessel leveled out in the lower atmosphere, traveling parallel to the ground at incredible speed. Launch all drop pods, Jin-Ho commanded. Marines, go, go, go. The Indomitable's belly opened. 200 modified cargo containers fell from the ship like seeds from a plant. Each container held Marines, medical personnel, and equipment. They weren't designed for this kind of drop. They were cargo pods, hastily welded with heat shields and parachutes. But they were all the Indomitable could manage with the resources they had. Commander Minji Choi stood in one of the pods with 19 Marines packed around her. Her left arm was already secured to a support bar. She knew this would be rough. 30 seconds to impact, a Marine sergeant said. Everyone brace. The pod fell through Keth 9's sky, spinning and tumbling. Through the small viewport, Minji caught glimpses of ground, rushing up to meet them. The parachutes deployed with a bang that rattled her teeth. The pod slowed. But not enough. They hit the ground like a meteor. The impact drove the air from Minji's lungs. Metal crunched and tore. Her arm snapped against the support bar, despite being secured. Pain exploded through her left side, but training took over. She released her harness and fell to the pod floor. Sound off, she gasped. The Marines checked in one by one. 3 were unconscious but breathing. 1 had a broken leg. Everyone else was bruised and battered but functional. Minji tested her left arm and bit back a scream. Definitely broken. Get that door open, she ordered. 2 Marines attacked the pod's emergency release. The door blew outward with explosive bolts. Sunlight streamed in, along with the sound of weapons fire. They had landed on the edge of the colony. Buildings stood ahead, many damaged by weapons. Smoke rose from dozens of fires. Between their position and the colony, Voran soldiers in their insectoid armor moved in formation. Defensive positions, Minji commanded. Set up a perimeter and locate the other pods. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, despite their injuries. Within 2 minutes, they had a defensive position established. Minji used her good hand to activate her communication device. All units, this is Commander Choi. Report status. Responses came in one by one. Of the 200 pods launched, 120 had landed successfully. The others had crashed too hard, been shot down, or landed in Voran-controlled areas. That meant they had about 150 Marines on the ground who could fight. It would have to be enough. Above them, the Indomitable roared past, pursued by Voran fighters that had followed it into the atmosphere. The ship's weapons blazed, keeping the enemy focused on it instead of the troops on the ground. "We've got 2 hours," Minji told her Marines. "That's how long the Indomitable can hold out. In 2 hours, we need to evacuate as many civilians as we can and get back to orbit." "Questions?" "Just one, Commander," the sergeant said. "Where do we start?" Minji pointed toward the colony with her good arm. The distress signal came from the Central Administration Building. "That's where the civilians will be gathered. We fight our way there, get them organized, and move them to the extraction point." "Simple," the sergeant repeated with a dark laugh. "Right." They moved out in combat formation. The Marines had trained for urban warfare on dozens of worlds. Earth's history had provided plenty of lessons about fighting in cities. But knowing how to do something and actually doing it, while outnumbered and injured, were very different things. The first Voran patrol appeared around a corner 50 meters away. The insectoid soldiers froze for just a moment, surprised to see humans this deep in their territory. That moment cost them. The Marines opened fire with precise 3-round bursts. 4 Vorans fell before the others could take cover. "Keep moving," Minji ordered. "Don't get pinned down." They ran through streets filled with debris and abandoned vehicles. Twice more, they encountered Voran patrols. Each time, the Marines used speed and surprise to overwhelm the enemy before they could call for reinforcements. But the closer they got to the Central Administration Building, the heavier the Voran presence became. Minji watched from behind a damaged truck as dozens of enemy soldiers moved around the building's entrance. Getting inside would cost lives. Her communication device crackled. "Commander Choi, this is Strike Team 7. We've reached the mining facility where the gravity generator is located. Voran presence is heavy. We're going to need time to plant the charges." Minji recognized the voice. Sergeant Taeyang Kim, one of the best Marines in the fleet. He and his team had volunteered for the most dangerous part of this mission. "How much time, Sergeant?" she asked. 15 minutes, maybe 20. But Commander, they know we're here. They're sending reinforcements." Minji looked at the administration building. Inside were 3,000 terrified civilians. Outside were Voran soldiers who would kill anyone trying to leave. And 5 kilometers away, a strike team was trying to destroy the one thing that could save all of them if this mission failed. She made her choice. "All units, this is Commander Choi. We attack the administration building in 5 minutes. Full assault. No holding back. We're going to make enough noise that every Voran on this planet focuses on us. Strike Team 7. Use that time to complete your mission. Commander, that will draw every enemy soldier in the area." A lieutenant protested. "We'll be overwhelmed. I know," Minji said quietly. She looked at her broken arm, already swelling inside the makeshift splint. She thought about Captain Park fighting alone in orbit. She thought about those 3,000 people who had been abandoned by everyone except a single human crew. "But we're not here to survive," she continued. "We're here to make sure they do. All Marines, check your weapons. When we hit that building, we hit it hard. For the Indomitable." For every person who said we couldn't do this, and for every civilian counting on us to be better than the odds say we should be. The Marines checked their weapons. Minji took a deep breath, feeling her broken ribs protest. Above, the Indomitable's engines roared as it made another pass, drawing enemy fire away from the ground. 5 minutes, she said. Then we show them what Marines do. Commander Minji Choi gave the signal. 150 Marines charged the administration building from 3 directions at once. The Voran soldiers guarding it barely had time to raise their weapons before the humans were on them. The battle was brutal and close. Marines used every dirty trick they had learned from centuries of human warfare. They used smoke grenades to blind the enemy. They attacked from unexpected angles. They showed no mercy because they knew none would be given to them. Minji fought despite her broken arm, firing her weapon one-handed. A Voran soldier swung a blade at her head. She ducked, kicked his legs out, and shot him before he hit the ground. Her ribs screamed with pain, but she pushed forward. "Breach the door," she shouted. 2 Marines placed explosive charges on the building's main entrance. Everyone took cover. The explosion blew the doors inward in a shower of metal and dust. Marines poured through the opening. Inside, the scene made Minji's stomach turn. Thousands of civilians huddled in groups, separated by species. They were dirty, terrified, and many were injured. Voran guards stood among them, weapons ready. But the guards hadn't expected a human assault. They were caught off balance. "Drop your weapons," Minji commanded in the Voran language. When they hesitated, the Marines opened fire. Some Vorans surrendered. Most didn't. Within 2 minutes, the building was secure. A young Sindari female rushed forward. "You came." The council said no one would come. The council was wrong," Minji said. She activated her communication device. "All units, begin evacuation. Get these people to the extraction point. Medical personnel, start triage on the injured." The Marines moved quickly. They organized the civilians into groups, prioritizing the wounded and the young. But as Minji moved through the building, she saw something that made her blood freeze. In a back room, behind locked doors, were 30 civilians who looked wrong. Their eyes were glassy and unfocused. Strange marks covered their skin. Some had growths that looked like insect shells pushing through from inside. A human medic checked them and then pulled Minji aside. "Commander, these people have been infected. The Vorans were using them as hosts for larvae. The process is too far advanced. We can't save them." Minji felt her chest tighten. "How long do they have?" Hours, maybe a day. But they're in pain. They're still aware of what's happening to them." Minji looked at the 30 doomed people. Some were trying to speak, to ask for help. She understood then why the Vorans had wanted the colonists alive. They weren't just conquering this world. They were turning its people into weapons. She made the hardest decision of her life. "Give them peace," she said quietly. "Make it quick and painless. They deserve that much." The medic nodded, tears in his eyes. He understood. Outside, the evacuation continued. The Marines had set up a perimeter around the building, fighting off Voran reinforcements. But the enemy was getting organized. More soldiers arrived every minute. "Commander, we've got a problem," a lieutenant reported. "The Vorans are bringing up heavy weapons. Looks like artillery. They're going to level this building, with everyone inside." Minji cursed. They needed more time. The civilians were moving too slowly. Many were injured or elderly. Children were scared and crying. Her communication device crackled. "Commander Choi, this is Strike Team 7. We've planted the charges on the gravity generator. Detonation in 5 minutes. But we're pinned down. We can't make it out." Sergeant Kim's voice was calm despite what he was saying. Minji felt a weight settle on her heart. 12 good Marines were about to die so that everyone else might live. "Sergeant, is there any way?" Negative, Commander. This is where our road ends. But make sure those civilians know someone cared enough to try. Make sure they know it mattered. It mattered, Sergeant. You mattered. All of you. Then it was worth it. Strike Team 7. Signing off. The communication went silent. Above them, the Indomitable was dying. Captain Jin-Ho Park could see it on every display. The ship had taken damage that should have destroyed it an hour ago. It only kept flying through the will of its crew and luck that was running out fast. Hull breaches on decks 3, 7, 9, and 11. Minji reported from the tactical station. The ship shuddered under another Voran attack. We've lost main power to the forward sections. Life support is failing. How many civilians are on the ground? Jin-Ho asked. Last count was 2,800 rescued. Commander Choi reports they're moving to the extraction point now. 2,800 out of 3,000. They had saved most of them. But the cost had been terrible. The Indomitable was breaking apart. Half their fighters were destroyed, and in 3 minutes, Strike Team 7 would blow the gravity generator and die in the explosion. Captain, Voran flagship is moving into firing position, Lieutenant Hee-Jin Song warned. They're preparing to fire everything they have. Jin-Ho looked at the tactical display. The Voran commander had finally lost patience. The flagship was moving in for a killing blow. The Indomitable couldn't dodge in its current condition. One direct hit from the flagship's main cannon would break the ship in half. Then something impossible happened. 5 kilometers from the colony, the gravity generator exploded. The blast was visible even from orbit. A brilliant flash that lit up the entire region. The explosion took out everything within a kilometer, including Sergeant Kim and his entire strike team. But more importantly, it freed the system from the gravity well. Ships could now jump to faster than light speed again. Captain, the well is down, Minji said. We can jump. We can escape. Jin-Ho knew she was right. They could gather the Marines and civilians below, make one last run for orbit, and jump away before the Vorans could stop them. It was the smart play, the safe play. Captain, the Voran flagship is firing, Hee-Jin warned. But Jin-Ho had noticed something else on his sensors. Ships were dropping out of faster than light speed at the edge of the system. Lots of ships. He recognized their signatures. The council came, he whispered. 3 Athari cruisers appeared first, their crystalline hulls glowing with stored energy. Then, 5 Kralgon battleships, massive and armored. A dozen Sindari vessels that moved like schools of fish. Other species followed, building into a fleet of 30 warships. The Voran commander saw them too. For a moment, the enemy flagship hesitated, caught between finishing the Indomitable and facing the new threat. That moment of hesitation cost them. The Council fleet opened fire with everything they had. The Voran flagship's shields collapsed under the barrage. Secondary explosions tore through the enemy ship. All Voran vessels are breaking off, Minji reported. They're retreating. The Council fleet pursued, driving the Vorans back. But the Indomitable was dying regardless. Jin-Ho could feel it through the deck plates, the way the ship groaned and shuddered. All hands, abandon ship, he ordered. Everyone to the escape pods. That's a direct order. The crew began to evacuate. Minji stayed on the bridge, coordinating the evacuation. Within 10 minutes, everyone had made it to pods, except the bridge crew. Captain, you need to go, Minji said. I will. As soon as everyone else is clear. Everyone is clear. Just you and me left. Let's go. Jin-Ho looked at the ship's controls. The engines were still firing, but they were losing coherence. In a few minutes, the reactor would breach. If that happened near Keth 9, the explosion could harm the people they had just saved. Minji, get to an escape pod. She understood immediately. No. Jin-Ho. No. We can set the autopilot. The autopilot is dead. Someone needs to steer her away from the planet. Someone needs to make sure she doesn't explode where she can hurt anyone. Then I'll stay with you. Your job is to make sure those civilians make it home. My job is to make sure you get the chance to do that. Jin-Ho stood and walked to the helm. He sat in He-Jin's empty seat and took control of the ship manually. Through the view screen, he could see Keth 9 below, where 2,800 people were getting ready to go home. Go, Minji. That's an order from your captain. Minji stood there, tears streaming down her face. Then she saluted, turned, and ran for the last escape pod. Jin-Ho was alone on the bridge of a dying ship. He pointed the Indomitable's nose away from the planet and pushed the engines to maximum. The ship responded sluggishly, but it moved. He thought about his crew, safe in their pods. He thought about Commander Choi, who would make a fine captain someday. He thought about the colonists going home to their families. Not a bad way to go, he said to the empty bridge. The Indomitable flew into high orbit, carrying its captain to the stars one last time. The escape pod tumbled through space. Commander Minji Choi pressed her face against the small viewport, watching the Indomitable climb higher into orbit. She could see the ship's engines burning bright against the dark, pushing it away from Keth 9. Captain, please eject, she whispered. Please. But she knew he wouldn't. Jin-Ho Park had made his choice. Someone needed to steer the dying ship away from the planet, and he had decided that someone would be him. The Indomitable reached high orbit. For a moment, it hung there like a bright star. Then the reactor containment failed. The explosion lit up half of Keth 9's sky. The ship that had carried 400 crew members and one impossible dream became light and heat and scattered debris. Minji closed her eyes, but tears ran down her face anyway. Around her escape pod, dozens of other pods drifted in space. Each one carried crew members who had trusted their captain. Now they watched him die alone. A Kralgon warship moved close and began collecting the pods. Within an hour, all the surviving crew of the Indomitable were aboard council vessels. Minji found herself in a medical bay, where doctors worked on her broken arm and cracked ribs. The Athari ambassador appeared beside her bed. Her crystalline form looked different somehow, less bright than before. Commander Choi, the ambassador said, the council wishes to express its regret. We did not believe your mission could succeed. We were wrong. Minji looked at the ambassador with hollow eyes. 2,800 civilians are alive. 138 humans are dead. Captain Park is dead. The Indomitable is destroyed. Was it worth it? The colonists believe so. Your Marines believe so. And Commander, if I may be honest, the council members who witnessed this battle now believe so as well. We didn't do it for your approval, Minji said bitterly. I know. That is what makes it remarkable. You acted not for reward or recognition, but because you believed those lives had value, because you refused to accept that some people are simply expendable. The ambassador paused. Her light dimmed further. I watched from our flagship. I saw your ship take damage that would have destroyed any vessel in our fleet. I saw your fighters sacrifice themselves to protect civilians they had never met. I saw Strike Team 7 choose certain death to give everyone else a chance. And I saw your captain steer a dying ship away from the planet to protect the very people he had just saved. Then you know we didn't do anything special, Minji said. We just did what needed to be done. That is where you are wrong, Commander. What you did was extraordinary. Not because it was impossible, but because you chose to do it when everyone else chose to do nothing. Over the next 2 days, Council ships completed the evacuation of Keth 9. Every surviving colonist was rescued and brought aboard. Medical teams worked around the clock to treat injuries. The Marines who had fought on the ground received care for their wounds. Minji moved through the ships in a daze. Her arm was in a cast. Her ribs were wrapped, but the pain in her chest had nothing to do with her injuries. She kept expecting to hear Jin-Ho's voice on the communication systems, giving orders in his calm way. A young Kralgon officer approached her. Commander Choi, the war chief requests your presence. She followed him to the flagship's command center. The Kralgon war chief stood before a massive viewport, looking out at the stars. He was 3 meters of muscle and armored skin, a warrior from a species that valued strength above all else. "Human commander," he rumbled. "Your captain fought well. His death was honorable." "Thank you," Minji said. "I have fought in 30 battles," the war chief continued. "I have seen warriors of great skill and courage. But I have never seen anything like what you humans did. You knew you would likely die. You went anyway. Why? Why? 4 mile. 1 of 17 while. 1 of teen, 1 of man." Minji thought about the question. She remembered Jinho standing in the council chamber, volunteering for a suicide mission. She remembered Sergeant Kim's last transmission. She remembered every Marine who had followed her into that colony without hesitation. "Because they needed help," she said simply. "And we could provide it. That's all the reason we needed." The war chief was silent for a long moment. Then he placed one massive hand on his chest in the Kralgan salute of respect. "The council was wrong about your species," he said. "We thought you were weak because you value individual lives. We thought you were foolish because you refused to accept loss as inevitable. We did not understand that these things are not weakness. They are your greatest strength." 6 months later, Minji stood on Keth 9 inches, front of a new monument. The planet had been rebuilt with help from the council. The colony was thriving again, its population growing as more settlers arrived. The monument stood in the center of the main square. It showed 2 figures: Captain Jinho Park and Commander Minji Choi. Standing side by side, around the base, engraved in letters that caught the sunlight, were the names of every human who had died during the rescue. Representatives from all 12 species that had been rescued attended the dedication ceremony. Thousands of colonists gathered. Council ambassadors stood in places of honor. Minji wore the uniform of a captain now. She commanded a new ship, the Indomitable II, but the promotion felt hollow without Jinho there to see it. She stepped forward to give her speech. She had written and rewritten it a dozen times, but when she looked at the crowd, at all those faces that would have been dead if her crew had listened to reason, the prepared words left her mind. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council told us that rescue was impossible, she said. Her voice carried across the square. They were right. By every calculation, by every strategic analysis, saving you was impossible. We shouldn't have survived. We definitely shouldn't have succeeded. She paused, looking at the monument. Jinho's face was captured in metal, forever looking toward the stars. But Captain Jinho Park taught us something important. He taught us that sometimes the right choice isn't the smart choice. Sometimes you have to ignore the odds and try anyway, because the alternative is to give up on people who need help. Minji pointed to the names on the monument. 138 humans died here. Sergeant Taeyang Kim and 11 Marines destroyed a gravity generator, knowing they wouldn't survive. Lieutenant Hee Jin Song flew combat missions until her fighter was destroyed. Captain Park steered a dying ship away from this planet to protect all of you. Her voice grew stronger. They didn't die because they had to. They died because they chose to. They chose to believe that your lives mattered, that saving you was worth any price. And they proved that sometimes, courage and determination can beat impossible odds. A Sindari child in the crowd spoke up. Will humans always help us? Even when it's dangerous? Minji smiled through her tears. I can't promise we'll always succeed. I can't promise we won't fail sometimes. But I can promise that we'll try, because that's what humans do. We refuse to accept that anyone is expendable. We refuse to abandon people, because saving them is difficult. She turned back to the monument. Captain Park's last words to me were about this day. He said to tell everyone that what we did wasn't suicide. It was what humans do. The Aethari ambassador stepped forward. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to establish the Jin-Ho Protocol. From this day forward, any rescue mission, regardless of risk, will be authorized if there is any chance of saving lives. We will no longer abandon people, because the mathematics suggest we should. The crowd erupted in cheers. Minji stood quietly, looking at Jinho's face on the monument. That night, alone in her quarters on the Indomitable 2, she pulled up the final transmission Jinho had sent. It was a video message, recorded seconds before the reactor exploded. His face filled the screen, calm and peaceful. Minji, if you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you're in command. Good. You'll be a better captain than I ever was. You'll lead with your head and your heart. And that's what people need. He smiled. I don't regret this. Not for a second. 2,800 people are going home because we didn't listen to the odds. Families are staying together. Children will grow up. That's worth any price. Jinho looked directly into the camera. The council called it suicide. We called it a rescue. But you know what it really was? It was a choice. A choice to believe that every life matters. A choice to stand up when everyone else sits down. A choice to be the kind of species the galaxy needs, not the kind it expects. He saluted. Take care of them, Minji. Take care of the crew. Take care of those civilians. And take care of yourself. And the next time someone says something is impossible, remember what we did here. Remember that humans don't accept impossible. The transmission ended. Minji sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about choices and courage, and the captain who had taught her what leadership really meant. Outside her viewport, the stars shone bright and beautiful. Somewhere among them, other people needed help. Other impossible missions waited, and humanity would answer the call, because that's what they did.